Another 1-hour bar exam hypothetical. First thing you see when you open this hypothetical on a bar exam is how dense the facts are. There are a lot of facts to work with and issue Spot in this one. 2 calls. First call asks what remedies are available to Borelli to enforce the terms of its contract with grower. What defenses might grower reasonably assert, and what's the likely outcome on each remedy sought by Borelli? Look at that. To enforce the terms of the contract. If I'm asked for remedies to enforce the terms of a contract, the first thing I think about is specific performance. I also want to think about the possibility of using replevin to recover the goods immediately, to send the sheriff out to recover the goods. And under certain circumstances, in a hypothetical, I might want to think about injunction as well. Yeah, specific performance is a court order that asks the other party, that actually requires the other party to fulfill the terms of the contract. But what if that's too late? What if something about this scenario means that by the time this is heard on the merits and a decision is made, it's going to be too late? The goods will be destroyed, they'll be sold to somebody else. Under some circumstances, you need that to keep the status quo, to keep the defendant from selling the goods or the goods from being destroyed, something on that order. Okay, so I've narrowed the issues there. Call 2, if Borelli elects to forego enforcement and elects instead to sue for damages, what defenses might grower reasonably assert, and what damages, if any, is Borelli likely to recover? All right, they're asking me for remedies and defenses. If I'm talking about contract, one big defense is that there is not an enforceable contract here. So I want to keep that in mind as I read the facts. Then all the more usual defenses you think about. So look at the facts. Borelli, largest single buyer of tomatoes in the area, manufactures several varieties of tomato-based pasta sauces. Borelli entered into a written contract with grower to supply Borelli its requirements of the tabor, the only type of tomato Borelli uses in its pasta sauces. The tabor is known for its distinctive flavor and color, and it is particularly desirable for making sauces. The parties agreed to a price of $100 per ton. So I have a UCC contract here. Tomatoes are a good. And I apparently have merchants involved. I don't know if I'm going to need that later on, but I'm thinking about that as I think about the context for these facts. And a fairly unique kind of chattel. It's not going to be easy to cover, to find this particular kind of tomato. All right, $100 per ton. What happens next? The contract, which was on Borelli's standard form, specified that grower was to deliver to Borelli at the end of the growing season in August all tabor tomatoes that Borelli might require. So again, they're telling us this is a requirements contract. At the heart of every requirements contract is the duty to have a good faith requirement, and that forms the basis for the consideration in this contract. The contract also prohibited grower from selling any excess tabor tomatoes to a third party without Borelli's consent. That's a pretty stringent term, isn't it? At the time the contract was executed, grower objected to that provision. A Borelli representative assured him that although the provision was standard in Borelli's contracts with its growers, Borelli had never attempted to enforce the provision. In fact, however, Borelli routinely sought to prevent growers from selling their surplus crop to third parties In other words, there's a misrepresentation here that's inducing grower to enter into this contract. I don't know that there's even a meeting of the minds. The contract also stated that Borelli could reject growers' tomatoes for any reason, even if they conformed to the contract. Okay, if Borelli can reject for any reason, then they're actually saying that they're not going to make a good faith effort to have a requirement. So where's the consideration here for Borelli? I have defenses I'm thinking about here. And I think they've already given me a lot of defenses to raise. If you think about the defenses to specific performance, latches, well, I haven't seen that here, but unclean hands, material misrepresentation, hardship, unconscionability. We have terms here that say that Borelli can reject for any reason, even if the goods conform to the contract. We have a misrepresentation here. I think we can raise most of those defenses on behalf of the grower. So what else could you say? You could say that because this is a requirements contract and Borelli can reject for any reason, then there really is no offer, right? Because they're not providing a definite and certain term in that they will have a requirement. And even if you think there is an offer, then there's no consideration here because they have pretty much explicitly said that they're not going to make a good faith effort to have a requirement. So no consideration, maybe no offer. Certainly, I think unconscionability and unclean hands because of the misrepresentation that their salesman made. All of those defenses are already raised in this hypothetical. So then we go on. On August 1st, Borelli told grower that it would need 40 tons of Tabor tomatoes at the end of August. Grower anticipated that he would harvest 65 tons of the tomatoes, commencing on August 30th. Because of the generally poor growing season, Tabor tomatoes were in short supply. Another manufacturer, Tosca Company, offered grower $250 per ton, so 2.5 times what the contract was, for his entire crop of Tabor tomatoes. Sounds like it would be worth growers' while to breach, right? That would be commercially successful for him. On August 15th, grower accepted the Tosca offer and informed Borelli that he was repudiating the Borelli grower contract. There's an anticipatory repudiation that gives Borelli the immediate right to sue, to go to court and seek remedies. All right. In case you missed that was a repudiation, the next paragraph starts with after grower's repudiation. Borelli was able to contract for only 10 tons of Tabor tomatoes on the spot market at $200 per ton, so $100 more than the contract price, but has been unable to procure any more. Other varieties of tomatoes are readily available at prices of $100 per ton or less on the open market, but Borelli is reluctant to switch to these other varieties. Borelli believes that Tabor tomatoes give its sauces a unique color, texture, and flavor. It's now August 20th. Borelli demands that grower fulfill their contract in all respects. Again, a lot of detailed, dense facts. They're giving you facts that will let you look at the damages remedy under the UCC. They're giving you facts that show that Borelli really cannot cover you could argue that. You could argue that they can try the $100 per ton other variety tomatoes, but all that goes into your analysis. It's August 20th. Borelli demands that grower fulfill their contract in all respects. So ordinarily, they would not be able to access the court yet because the time for performance has not yet arrived. But because of that anticipatory repudiation, Borelli can immediately sue to enforce the contract or to collect damages remedies. And that's what we're being asked about. Look at how many dense facts we have here. To answer call 1, I would need to tell the grader about Replevin, about Borelli's ability to ask the court to seize the goods, send the sheriff, confiscate the goods. I would want to write up specific performance and analyze that the legal remedy is inadequate. You know the elements to specific performance: definite in certain terms, feasibility of enforcement, mutuality, and the lack of defenses. The problem here is that I think grower has a lot of defenses. And so I think that Borelli is unlikely to be able to prevail in specific performance. What about an injunction, though, while this is going on? I want to tell the grader that the problem with specific performance, even if Borelli could get it, is that by the time they got that, it would be too late. Those tomatoes would have rotted in the field. So what Borelli needs to do when they sue is ask the court for an injunction. Now, they could ask for a TRO, but a better thing to do would be to ask for a preliminary injunction, just to keep the status quo, to keep Borelli from selling those tomatoes to Tosca. And I think that an injunction is a mandatory issue under this set of facts. They gave you a perishable good. Bar exam writers like to do that to see if you realize that injunction is sometimes a remedy that you want to seek in contract, not just specific performance. We talked briefly about all those defenses. The defenses also apply to the second call, particularly that there really is no offer, there certainly is no consideration. This is an unconscionable contract, and the court is unlikely to enforce it. All of that went into answering this hypothetical. They're dense facts. It would take me probably more than my usual 15 minutes to thoroughly issue spot this and organize the issues and figure out what I needed to do in each call, which leaves me maybe 40 minutes to write this, assuming this is a 1-hour essay, which it was on this bar exam. So how am I going to allocate that 40 minutes? Call 1 is going to take me at least twice as much time as call 2, because I have all the issues of Replevin's specific performance injunction, the defenses to specific performance in particular. And in call 2, I can refer back to some of the analysis I've already done on defenses. And so call 2 is going to be much shorter for me. This is a UCC racehorse kind of remedies hypothetical. The issues, though, once you've seen this, are fairly straightforward, right? So if you saw one like this on your bar exam or your law school exam, you would be better able to handle it because you've already issue spotted one like this and thought about how to organize the issues. That's what it takes to master the bar exam or final exams. It's working past hypotheticals and getting used to the range of issues that are tested and how they're presented. And if you're watching this in preparation for an exam, you're doing exactly what you need to do. you're working past hypotheticals and familiarizing yourself with issue clusters and how they're ordinarily presented. So you're getting a good leg up on your exam. If what we're doing here is helpful to you, then please help us by sharing the video with anyone you think would benefit from it. Subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, do all those things that help us make this YouTube channel grow. And we'll see you on the next one.